Political crisis in Pakistan. Last weekend's events surrounding the attempt to pass controversial constitutional amendments exposed the deepening political crisis in Pakistan. The ruling coalition tried to pass these amendments aimed at altering the judiciary structure, but failed due to opposition from Maulana Fazlur Rahman's JUIF party. This prevented the coalition from securing enough votes in the National Assembly. Judicial reforms and power struggle. The proposed amendments would have effectively made the judiciary subservient to the executive, undermining the separation of powers. The changes included creating a federal constitutional court and altering the process of appointing the Chief Justice. These measures are viewed as part of a broader plan to eliminate any judicial challenge to the military-backed government. Increased assertiveness of judiciary. The government and establishment were reportedly alarmed by recent rulings by the Supreme Court, including a decision that awarded PTI reserved seats in Parliament. Additionally, judges from the Islamabad High Court had complained about interference from intelligence agencies, further straining relations between the judiciary and the government. Undemocratic maneuvers. The ruling coalition is accused of trying to manipulate the judiciary for political purposes. The proposed amendments, which were not shared with parliamentarians or cabinet members, aimed to reshape the judiciary in ways that would benefit the current government and military establishment. Historical context and Charter of Democracy. The article argues that the justification for these amendments, supposedly based on the Charter of Democracy signed decades ago by political parties, is flawed. The original charter emphasized a balance of power between the judiciary and executive, not an erosion of judicial independence. Ongoing threat to judicial independence. Despite the failure to pass the amendments, the government and military establishment are expected to continue their efforts. The next attempt could come before the current Chief Justice retires. The writer emphasizes the importance of preserving judicial independence and hopes that Chief Justice Qazi Fayez Issa will resist any attempts to compromise it before his retirement. Crux. The government's failed attempt to pass controversial constitutional amendments aimed at restructuring Pakistan's judiciary reveals a broader power struggle between the judiciary and the military-backed establishment. These moves threaten judicial independence and constitutional democracy. Despite the setback, further attempts to pass these amendments are expected, making this an ongoing political crisis with significant implications for the country's governance. Economic stabilization amid political instability. Pakistan's economy is stabilizing, with inflation peaking, exchange rates settling, interest rates on a downward trajectory, and the current account returning to surplus. However, paradoxically, the political situation is becoming increasingly unstable, a rare occurrence in Pakistan's history. Unusual disconnect between politics and economy. Historically, periods of political stability have coincided with economic stability, and political instability has often emerged during economic growth phases. However, the current scenario is unique as the government is struggling politically during the stabilization phase, not during economic growth. Weak government. Despite strong parliamentary backing, despite having strong numbers in parliament and the backing of the military establishment, the current government is proving incapable of effectively managing the country. This paradox indicates that the system of governance itself is losing legitimacy and traction. Loss of public trust due to inflation. Unprecedented inflation since May 2021 has severely eroded public faith in the government and the system of rule. People's purchasing power has significantly diminished, and it will take years for incomes to recover from the economic damage caused by inflation. Use of repression to suppress dissent. To counter public dissatisfaction and maintain control, the government has resorted to repressive tactics, including arrests, media suppression, internet restrictions, and efforts to curtail judicial independence. However, these measures are not working as effectively as they did in the past. Failure of traditional economic and political playbooks. The rulers have relied on the historical strategy of securing bailouts and loans to fuel the economy while repressing political opposition. However, this time, no foreign partners have provided a significant bailout, and repression is not silencing public discontent. Erosion of government legitimacy. As the government stabilizes macroeconomic indicators but fails to earn the people's trust, it continues to lose legitimacy. The prolonged combination of inflation and repression is weakening the system of governance and further alienating the population. Lesson for governance. The current political situation highlights the importance of earning the people's just consent to rule. Pakistan's history shows a strong demand for legitimate governance, and the current government's inability to command public loyalty suggests that it is nearing the end of its political relevance. Crux. Despite stabilizing macroeconomic indicators, Pakistan's government faces growing political instability due to unprecedented inflation, public distrust, and repressive tactics. The system of governance is losing traction, highlighting the need for legitimate rule earned through public consent rather than force or economic manipulation. Bureaucrats' dual commitment. Bureaucrats often have a dual devotion, first to their professional responsibilities and second to a literary or intellectual pursuit, described as their extracurricular distraction. Historical literary contributions by bureaucrats. Malik M. Danish, a Pakistani diplomat, is the latest in a long line of bureaucrats who have made notable literary contributions. His work, Honeyed Poison, a translation of modern Persian poetry, draws attention to the intellectual infidelity of many officials who balance their public duties with literary endeavors. Notable historical figures. Abul Fazl, Mughal Emperor Akbar's wazir who documented the court and its functions. Kanhaiya Lal, a 19th century engineer in Lahore whose architectural and literary legacies remain significant. Syed Muhammad Latif, known for his histories of Punjab and Lahore. Lepel Griffin compiled genealogies of Punjab's chiefs, and other officials like Sir Charles Aitchison and J. Hutchison contributed to historical documentation. Modern bureaucratic authors. In modern times, bureaucrats like Dr. M.S. Randhawa and others have continued this tradition of contributing to art, history, and literature. Some publish memoirs, often self-serving, as they seek recognition for their roles in shaping history. Cultural patrons of the arts. Earlier bureaucrats saw themselves as patrons of the arts. For instance, B.A. Qureshi supported the artist Sadiquine in the Lahore Museum, and murals by Sadiquine and Shakir Ali still hang in the Punjab Public Library, serving as testament to this legacy. Malik M. Danish's literary pursuit. Danish found inspiration for his translation of Persian poetry through his teachers and colleagues, navigating the sensitive political climate associated with Iran. His translations give voice to the sorrow and resilience of Iranian poets, reflecting the shared struggles of both Iranian and Pakistani societies. Powerful poetry excerpts. Mehdi Akavanasal's Lament speaks of the anguish caused by turmoil in Iran, resonating with Pakistani readers as well. Kaysar Amanpour offers moving advice to readers, emphasizing the importance of deeply understanding a writer's work, word by word, line by line. Crux. Bureaucrats in Pakistan and beyond often balance their official duties with literary and intellectual pursuits, contributing significantly to art and history. Malik M. Danish's translation of Persian poetry highlights the continuity of this tradition, while also reflecting the shared cultural struggles of Pakistan and Iran. Leadership and oratory. In Pakistan's context, leadership is often confused with oratory skills and rabble-rousing, yet effective leadership involves deep thinking and strategic action, not merely public speaking or incitement. Kamala Harris versus Trump. In the U.S. political debate, Kamala Harris's strategy to provoke Donald Trump into self-incrimination was highlighted, showcasing how political rhetoric often sways attention away from substantive solutions. Historical and global perspectives. Figures like Abul Kalam Azad and Bahadur Yar Jang were great orators in the subcontinent, but the true leaders were Gandhi, Nehru, and Jinnah, who combined thought with action. Barack Obama, despite his intellectual depth, was sometimes criticized for being too cerebral. Decline in political discourse. Worldwide, political debates have descended into name-calling and personal attacks, reducing complex leadership tasks to petty squabbles. In Pakistan, a hypothetical debate between political contenders would likely follow a similar pattern, exposing challenges without offering solutions. Shallow political strategies. Modern politicians, especially in Pakistan, often rely on charming rhetoric without providing concrete solutions. Their governance is outsourced to strategists and technocrats, as they themselves are often not equipped to handle the complexities of governance. Revenue collection failure. The refusal of leadership across various sectors to pay their fair share of taxes hampers Pakistan's financial system. External experts brought in to reform the tax structure are quickly overwhelmed by vested interests, highlighting the leadership's ineffectiveness. Current political climate. The recent PTI rally, particularly the KP chief minister's offensive remarks and Imran Khan's endorsement, underscores the degradation of public discourse. Apologies from party members were quickly dismissed, revealing a deepening culture of abusive rhetoric. Public discourse reflects the state. What leaders say in public, whether in debates or rallies, reveals the state of the nation. The audience's acceptance of such leaders reflects their own self-esteem and the level of their expectations from governance. Crux: political leadership should be more than just oratory and incitement. However, in both global and Pakistani contexts, political discourse has increasingly deteriorated into name-calling and shallow debates. This reflects not only on the leaders but also on the public that supports them, showing a disconnect between rhetoric and the real challenges of governance. Government's secretive constitutional amendment plan. The government's recent attempt to amend the Constitution covertly has caused widespread backlash. It reportedly went to great lengths to conceal the details, even providing different versions of the plan to various stakeholders. Widespread disapproval. Once the draft amendments became public, there was a unified outcry from lawyers, politicians, academics, and analysts. The proposals were seen as overly ambitious and lacking transparency, making them unpalatable. Political fallout. After failing to push through the amendments, particularly due to opposition led by Maulana Fazlur Rahman, the government and its allies have retreated from their previously aggressive stance. They are now attempting to justify the failed amendments as being for the public good, despite their previous secrecy. Legal community's reaction. The legal community has been particularly vocal in condemning the government's actions. Their strong criticism should be taken seriously, as it reflects broader concerns about the integrity of the legislative process. Uncertain future of amendments. The government's failure to secure enough votes and the backlash it received may force it to reconsider its approach. With the element of surprise lost, it might abandon or revise its strategy, especially given the strong opposition from the legal and political communities. Importance of constitutional protocols. The Constitution is a protected document, requiring a two-thirds majority in Parliament for any changes. Attempts to bypass this protocol and coerce lawmakers erode trust in democracy and raise questions about the intentions behind such moves. Crux. The government's covert attempt to amend the Constitution has backfired, resulting in widespread disapproval and a strong reaction from the legal community. The lack of transparency and the attempt to override democratic protocols have caused significant damage, and it remains uncertain whether the government will make another attempt at such changes. Hezbollah targeted in sophisticated attack. Lebanon was hit by a highly coordinated attack on Tuesday, with pagers, used by Hezbollah to avoid detection through mobile phones, exploding. At least 9 people were killed and over 2,700 injured, with Hezbollah members among the casualties. Israel is accused of being behind the attack. Escalating tensions. The attack is seen as a major provocation in the ongoing conflict between Hezbollah and Israel, which has intensified since the October 7th Hamas attacks on Israel. Despite public statements from both sides indicating they do not seek full-scale war, the pager blasts seem designed to push Hezbollah into further confrontation. Israel's aggressive actions. Israel's recent operations, including targeting Iranian and Hezbollah figures and facilities, point to an aggressive stance. Despite calls for de-escalation, these actions suggest Israel is willing to take significant risks, potentially leading to wider regional conflict. Iran's role and axis of resistance. Tehran, a key supporter of Hezbollah and part of the so-called axis of resistance, has yet to respond to several provocations, including the assassination of Hamas leader Ismail Haniyeh. Israel's actions are seen as attempts to lure Iran and its allies into a direct conflict. Broader regional and global implications. The escalating violence threatens to destabilize not just Lebanon, but the entire region, with potential repercussions for the global economy. The U.S.'s diplomatic efforts for a ceasefire in Gaza have been criticized for favoring Israel, raising doubts about the possibility of meaningful de-escalation. Potential for war. While both Israel and Hezbollah claim they do not want a war, the situation is highly volatile. Israel's aggressive moves could spark a conflict that neither side may be able to control, with serious implications for the region and beyond. Crux. The sophisticated pager attack targeting Hezbollah signals rising tensions between Israel and the pro-Iran group, with both sides teetering on the edge of a larger conflict. Despite claims of avoiding war, Israel's actions suggest a push towards further escalation, potentially dragging the region into deeper instability. Disappointing exit for Pakistan. The Pakistan hockey team was expected to reach the final of the Asian Champions Trophy, but suffered an unexpected defeat to host China in the semi-finals, losing 2-0 in a penalty shootout after a 1-1 draw in regulation time. Complacency and missed opportunities. Following a narrow loss to India, which raised hopes for a rematch in the final, the team's performance against China revealed a sense of complacency. Despite strong early performances in the tournament, this loss highlighted weaknesses that need addressing. Coaching changes. Under coach Tahir Zaman, who took over after Roland Oltmans resigned, Pakistan had shown promise, notably giving India a tough match. However, the defeat to China has cast doubt on the team's progress. Need for infrastructure and support. Zaman emphasized the necessity for improved infrastructure, player welfare, and high-performance centers to help Pakistan regain its former hockey glory. There is a pressing need for actionable steps to meet these requirements. Future of Pakistan hockey. The team's performance in the tournament raises critical questions about its future. While they managed to secure third place by beating South Korea, the focus should now be on learning from setbacks and implementing the changes necessary for long-term success. Crux. Pakistan's hockey team faced a disappointing exit from the Asian Champions Trophy after an unexpected defeat to China, raising concerns about complacency and the need for systemic improvements in infrastructure and player development. Coach Tahir Zaman's emphasis on these issues highlights the urgent need for concerted efforts to restore the team's former standing in international hockey.